Don't look at my forehead because it is a spoiler. If for some reason you've been under a rock or you're really young and you don't know this story, welcome, book besties, book nenas. Happy Halloween. I was already going to be dressing up as Carrie for my podcast with my bestie, the Book Fix podcast. Check us out. We did book reviews. And I thought it would be fun if maybe for book covered, where I normally cover a book while doing my makeup, taking inspiration from the book cover. But because this is a classic and there are so many different book covers, oh my gosh, I feel like my hair is in the way. I thought it would be fun if instead I turn myself into Carrie White while covering the story of Carrie. So Carrie White is someone who is bullied relentlessly. She is a 16-year-old high schooler, and her peers are not the nicest to her. In the book, she is described to be overweight and she has a lot of acne. And her mother is also very, very religious. I mean, to the point where it's a little psychotic. Through this bullying, we learn that Carrie has telekinetic powers. And I mean, moral of the story, don't bully. Just don't bully. Things go awry on prom night. I will be posting pictures of every character on the screen. Listen, I love the 1973, something version of Carrie, but I wasn't born yet, okay? So when 2013 Carrie hit the theaters, you best believe that I sat in that movie theater many times. I don't remember how many times. I swear I think I saw this movie like 4-5 times in the movie theater because I was obsessed with Carrie by Stephen King. So I am going to be posting pictures of who people casted for the movie. No, I think it's going to be a series directed by Mike Flanagan, which, by the way, I just saw Shelby Oaks. So good. I know it was produced by Mike Flanagan. What's the difference? Well, I know what the difference is, but whatever. I recommend Shelby Oaks too, okay? Let me set the scene for you. Carrie, only 3 years old, okay? Doesn't really understand much of anything except the fear of God, because that's exactly what Margaret White, her mother, is trying to instill in her since birth. Now, Carrie, she has a neighbor who was sunbathing. God forbid a woman sunbathe. Like, please, Margaret, let her sunbathe. Carrie, 3 years old, remember, sees her neighbor sunbathing and, of course, in a bikini. How dare she? Scandalous. Very, very scandalous. So Margaret White is over here yelling at her, calling her the meanest things. Carrie, she's only 3. Doesn't really understand what the problem is. I mean, she looks at the neighbor's chest and is like, "Madam, what do you have on your chest?" And the neighbor's like, "You mean my breasts?" Whoa, accidentally rhymed there. And so because the mother, Margaret, is freaking out, she's just like scaring the neighbor, scaring Carrie. Carrie realizes what boobies are, and Margaret starts hurting herself. Margaret hurts herself a lot in this book. I mean, she scratches herself, hits herself, pulls her own hair. She's just like screaming Bible verses. Carrie, unsure of how to handle her own emotions, or let alone help her mother handle her emotions, causes a rain of stones to happen. And so this is like a phenomenon that no one really understood. And because it happened at Margaret White's house, they tried to interview her, but she declined. She was like, "Stones? No comment." This is how Carrie is described, okay? She was a chunky girl with pimples on her neck and back and buttocks. Buttocks? Her wet hair, completely without color, rested against her face with dispirited sogginess, and she simply stood, head slightly bent, letting the water splat against her flesh and roll off. She looked like a sacrificial goat. So this is after like PE. I think they were playing volleyball. So Carrie is in the locker room showering. Well, Carrie starts her period for the first time ever in her whole life. Carrie is just bleeding so much in that shower. So the girlies are not being girlies. They're not being girls in this locker room, because they start throwing pads and tampons at this poor girl, freaking out over, having her first period. She thinks she's dying and she's in pain. She's in pain. Now, the PE teacher, Miss Desjardins, Miss Desjardins, I don't know. You know, she wasn't really that compassionate at first because she's thinking like, hello, Carrie, it's just your period. It's just your period. Get up, girl. But based on how Carrie is screaming and crying and reacting, she realizes, wait a minute. Have you never? Okay, interesting. And so she kicks all of the girls out of the locker room, tells them to stop bullying this poor girl. And Carrie is freaking out and then causes a light bulb to shatter. But Miss Desjardins does not know that Carrie possesses a little bit of telekinetic powers. I mean, not even Carrie knows it at this point either. And so she just thinks, whoa, that was crazy. So Miss Desjardins / Miss Desjardins takes Carrie to the principal's office and is explaining what happened. And she's telling the principal, I'm going to reprimand those girls the way that I see fit, okay? And the principal's like, all right, chill. But the principal keeps calling Carrie Cassie. And let's just say Carrie doesn't like that. And so Carrie screams and says, that's not my name. And it causes an ashtray that was on his desk to like topple over. It just like falls to the ground. It, you know, like, you know? So then I think it's funny because no one really reacts. Like they're just kind of like, oh, crazy. I didn't notice how close it was to the edge of the desk. You know it wasn't that close to the... Whatever. Carrie gets sent home. She walks home. And during this walk, we realize that Margaret White and Carrie White are just kind of like the talk of the town. They live in Maine. I don't know how small this town is, but they live in Maine. And this little boy on his bike rides around Carrie and starts insulting her. She's losing her mind and she starts thinking like, oh, I just want to hurt him. I just want to, you know, which her telekinetic powers are unleashed in that moment. And then the little boy either falls or gets slammed into a tree. I don't remember. I think he falls. He like stumbles down. And so he freaks out and rides off on his bike. So at this point, Carrie starts realizing, hold on, I think I can move things. It's so weird. The way that she describes it is her mind like flexes. It's like a muscle. And so when she gets home, she's telling her mom, like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you explain this to me? Everybody laughed at me. They threw things at me. And her mom's just like, so you're a woman now. She starts speaking nonsense to Carrie and starts telling her how she has to beg for forgiveness. She has to go to her closet, her punishment closet. So she gets locked in the closet where there's a bunch of like religious things framed around. There's a Bible there. And I believe Carrie was forced to stay in this closet for 6 hours. What the fuck? Throughout the story, we also learned that Carrie's telekinetic abilities are genetic. She has always kind of been able to move things with her mind, but she kind of blacked out these memories and she just forgot that she could do this, I guess. Carrie stays home for about a week because of the bullying. During this time, she's definitely like practicing a little bit more with her telekinetic abilities. She starts like moving things. And at first it's very difficult, right? So she starts off with like, I think moving her hairbrush and it like hurts her. She gets really tired. And then after some time, she is able to move her bed a little bit. So while Carrie is at home during this week, you know, after the bullying and the humiliation, Miss Desjardins, she rounds up the girls during PE and she's just like, what you guys did was a really shitty thing. And the girls are like, you can't say shitty. The main popular mean girl is Chris. She's just like immediately like, who cares about Carrie White? Like, who cares? So we made fun of her. What of it? Her and her mom are always talking about how we're all going to hell. Well, Chris not to side with Margaret White because she is insane. What Chris ends up doing is also insane. So Chris denies to do this boot camp that Miss Desjardins wants them all to do. And she tells the girls, if you don't do this, say goodbye to prom. Now, prom is a big deal. It's a big deal during this time, okay? Actually, it still might be a big deal. Who knows? Comment down below. Is prom that big of a deal? let me know. She tells them, if you don't do this, say goodbye to prom. And Chris is like, you can't do that. I'm going to tell my daddy to sue you. Because also Mrs. Jordan pushes Chris against the lockers. And she's like, you can't hit me. Oh, by the way, Sue Snell is Chris's bestie. And Sue Snell is also someone who was throwing the pads and tampons at Carrie, but then she stopped because she felt bad when she realized that Carrie was really, really scared. And so while Chris is like, guys, come on, let's all leave. They can't stop us all from not going to prom. You know, that'd be crazy. There'd be no prom. So she's trying to get the girls to also leave gym, but Sue Snell tells Chris to just shut up. Sue is a part of the mean girl clique, but she's got a little bit of a conscience. She feels a little bit bad. And so Chris is pissed. Now, Chris has a boyfriend named Billy. Now, I can't remember in the book. No, yes, Billy was 19, but he had been held back 2 years, so that's why he was still a senior. I think in one of the movies he was not in the school anymore. I don't remember anymore. It's been a while. Now, Billy, if you think Chris is unhinged, Billy is just as unhinged. Match made in hell for real. Sue Snell is a popular girl, and she is dating a popular boy who is in the football team named Tommy. Now, Tommy and her, after having a passionate night, they start talking and she starts crying. She starts feeling bad about what she did to Carrie. I'm gonna skip forward. Eventually, she decides, you know what? I gotta make it up to her. And the only way I know how is to have my sexy, popular, drop-dead gorgeous boyfriend ask Carrie out to prom. And at first, Tommy is like, Sue, prom is everything to us. Like, prom, we're going to be prom king and queen together. Like, no. He doesn't want to at first, but because he loves Sue, he eventually relents and is like, okay, fine. If you really, really want me to ask Carrie, which I know she's going to say no, I'll do it. But Sue tells him she's not going to say no to you because I see the way she looks at you. When Carrie is finally back at school, she's in the back of the classroom, and after class, Tommy walks up to her and is like, hey girl, prom, baby? Why did he do a promposal? Okay, it was the 70s. That probably was not that. Was that a thing? I don't know. Someone tell me. Today is the last day to get tickets. I was wondering, you have a date maybe? And Carrie thinks that this is just another ruse, that this is just another way for everyone to make fun of her. And he promises her up and down, side to side. He's just like, no, girl, I swear I want to go with you. I want to take you to prom. I want us to have a fun night. Not like that, but you know, I want us to enjoy prom together. She's like, no, you're just trying to make fun of me. Eventually, he is able to convince her because he tells her, today is the last day to get tickets, so please go with me. You know, people hear that they're going to prom together, and Chris, popular mean girl, gets pissed. She's just like, no way is she gonna ruin prom for the rest of us. And so her and her psycho boyfriend, Billy, come up with a plan to ruin prom, to ruin Carrie's prom, but also to make a spectacle out of her and remind everyone that Carrie is not a friend. She's a foe. Billy's a little crazy, matches Chris's energy. He decides to take his little friends and go to the farm. Now, at this farm, they sadly hurt a pig and they collect the pig's blood in a bucket. And he's just like, pig's blood for a pig. Okay, Billy. Carrie, you know, she's in her rebellious age, I guess. And she just tells her mom, Tommy, this really nice guy, asked me to prom and I'm gonna go. And her mom is immediately like, no. See, You started your period. The boys, the men, they smell the blood. They know that she's trying to warn Carrie that she's going down a dark, scary path to which she will never be able to come back from. And she tries telling her, pray, pray. And then she's trying to put her in the closet, right? She's trying to put her in the prayer closet, really small prayer closet with like the religious, scary stuff around, and the Bible's there. And Carrie fights back, and she basically forces her mom to just like stop, right? Because she's a seamstress, she sews. Carrie decides that she's gonna go buy the fabric and make her own prom dress. Now, her mom is not a fan of the prom dress because she thinks that it's showing too much. What does she call them? Her dirty pillows? All right, let me change into my dress because prom is here. I feel so bad for Carrie because all this girl wanted was to just be normal, seen as normal. She just wanted to have a good night. And I hate that Chris did not let her. It's the day of the prom now, okay? Carrie is dressed beautifully, and her mom is trying to beg her, like, please, we can pray. We can beg for forgiveness. You don't have to go and sin. And Carrie's like, stop. I'm gonna go and have a good time. Everything's gonna be okay. At prom, Carrie realizes that Carrie and Tommy are on the prom ballot. So Tommy tells her, you know what? Let's not be humble. Let's not be humble. We want us to win, right? And she's like freaking out. She's just like, I don't want to go on stage. No way. And he tells her, it's okay. Like, they're just going to give you a stupid crown. You get this little thing, and then you have to do a little dance. And that's it. That's all that it entails. And so she's just like, okay. And I think she's feeling more confident because he's confident. So they vote for themselves. At the end, when the votes are being counted, it's between Tommy and Carrie. They got tied with this other couple. And so everyone has to vote again, but just between these two couples. And Tommy and Carrie end up winning by 1 vote. So Chris and Billy snuck into prom, and they are kind of like behind the stage. They had set up this bucket full of pig's blood above the stage, kind of like where the prom queen would be standing. And so they're behind the stage waiting for Carrie and Tommy to go up the stage. Chris is holding the rope, and she has to like pull it and then let it go for it to spill on the winners. And Billy is telling her like, you better do this. You better do this. I just thought it was funny how Billy would be going off on this whole like tangent, like, this isn't just like, this isn't like this other little thing that we did in the past where you and I robbed a store and then we went to prison and then, your dad got us out. No, if we get found out that we did this, this is prison time. You and I will be locked up. Dig it? I loved it. I loved every time he'd be like, dig it? Because I just pictured him being like this. You dig it, girl? So now people are cheering for Tommy and Carrie as they're walking up the stage, and they get crowned prom queen and prom king. So once Tommy and Carrie are on stage, Chris pulls the lever and the rope and then lets it go, and the bucket full of pig's blood just falls all over Carrie, completely covered in the blood. Now, it stinks, okay? It's disgusting. And the bucket falls on Tommy's head and knocks him out cold. And Carrie's just like looking at herself covered in blood, just freaking out. And of course, Chris's rude, mean, disgusting friends are in the crowd, in the prom's crowd. So they knew that something was going to happen. And so they start laughing. Like, they're just laughing at Carrie covered in this blood. And it prompts more people to laugh. And I don't really understand. I feel like they just all kind of felt awkward. And so they just started laughing at her. So when everyone starts laughing at Carrie, she thinks this was probably all part of everyone's plan. Or, of course, everyone's laughing at me again, making fun of me. I'm just the laughing stock of this stupid town. And she runs away crying. But when she gets down the stage, somebody trips her and she falls flat, and then crying, she gets herself up and she runs out of the gym. Oh, and Miss Desjardins sees her. She runs to her. She's like, Carrie, are you okay? And Carrie, in the midst of her paranoia, panicking, sadness, humiliation, she just like uses her powers to like shove her away, shove her down. And then she runs out of the doors. I think she's thinking about going back home, running home. But then she just stops and she's just like, they're not gonna get away with this. Carrie turns around, walks towards the gym, and forces all of the doors to close, trapping everyone inside of prom, inside of the gym. So she's still standing outside, staring at everyone, covered in blood. Eyes are just full of hatred at this point. And she starts destroying everything. Like the sprinklers start going. Well, first I think the sprinklers go off because she's thinking like, I'm going to ruin their outfits too. And so now everyone's wet and she just causes mayhem inside of that gym, okay? And then it ends up lighting on fire. So I don't remember the sequence of events anymore, but what I do know is that Chris and Billy are in their car, and then all of a sudden they run into Carrie. Carrie sees them and she's just like, oh, hell no. I know it was these two. And so I believe she forces their car to crash into a gas station. Listen, I just know that there's fire everywhere, okay? There's fire not just at the school, but this whole town is feeling the wrath of Carrie White. So then Chris and Billy, gone. Carrie goes home, sees her mother, and you know what I hate? I hate that it's feeling like Mother Gothel was the one that wrote this book. Mother knows best? Really? It's starting to feel like that was the inspiration of this book, but I know it wasn't because, timeline, whatever. So Margaret White is over here like hugging Carrie, consoling her, just like, I know, child, I know. I wasn't there. I wasn't at prom, but somehow I know exactly what went down at that school. So she's hugging her and Margaret has a knife in her hand. Ugh. So then she hurts Carrie and Carrie hurts her back by stopping her heart from beating. So now Carrie is dying. She ends up at a parking lot. I don't remember exactly where she was trying to go or where she was trying. I don't know. But she's dying. And remember how I said that Sue Snell had a feeling that something was wrong at prom? So she's just like wandering around town trying to find Carrie, and she finds Carrie dying at this parking lot. And they kind of have a little bit of a moment, but basically what's revealed is that Carrie's telekinetic powers somehow passed on to Sue Snell. And then after it passes on, she is gone. The book ends by, I believe it was like a letter written by somebody else entirely discussing how her niece is showing these abilities, these telekinetic abilities. And so it's kind of like leaving an implication of, will this story repeat itself again? The end. I really did not expect the book to end in that way because none of the iterations showed the power passing on or it being genetically passed down. The power just kind of existed for no reason. Like it kind of felt like it was just manifested through Carrie's relentless bullying and, her mother's psychosis, religious psychosis. And yeah, so that concludes Carrie by Stephen King. If you hadn't heard about it before, how? It is definitely a horror classic, and I love this story so much. I had never read the book before. I just watched the different iterations, and I'm so excited for the reboot that is going to be coming out. And I just love this story so much. I think it's such an amazing cautionary tale. Like, obviously, telekinetic powers. I mean, hey, uno nunca sabe. One never knows, but still. Again, like I said earlier, moral of the story, don't bully. Be nice to your peers. You just never know. What if they have telekinetic abilities? If you have read the book and watched the movies, let me know down below which was your favorite version. I can't wait to see the reboot. I had never read this book before. I absolutely loved the movies and the story, but reading the book was definitely a different experience. I thought it was interesting to see the way that it was told. Instead of being told linear, it was told through testimonies, interviews, newspaper clippings, and so on. But also reading the book, you can definitely tell that it's an old book. I don't want to deny Stephen King's impact in the horror community. Of course, legend. But reading the book, there is racism, fatphobia, and oh my God, I'm blanking on, there was just a couple of moments when like I was reading it and it just like took me out. I was like, whoa, did they really just say that? Did they really just say that? Okay, crazy. But I just feel like I need to tell you, just in case you hadn't read the book, tread lightly, okay? And of course, oh, and I didn't even mention that there is non-consensual activity shown between Margaret White and her late husband. So let me know what book I should do next. I have an idea of which one I want to do next, and I will be doing what I normally do, which will be doing my makeup inspired by the colors in the book cover. I just thought this would be a fun way to celebrate Halloween. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, and I will see you guys in the next book covered episode. Bye! Happy Halloween!